Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Chris, your NFL writer here at Occupy Fantasy, here with some NFL DFS picks and tips for the wide receiver position here in Week 5 for FanDuel and DraftKings, especially, obviously. We're dropping these position previews every single week throughout the season, so if you like that, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel below. You'll get notified when we have a new video for you to check out. We'd also really appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up on the video. Let us know you want to see more content like this. You have any questions for us about wide receivers, please leave them in the comment section below. We'd be happy to talk to you there. You can also consider joining our Discord. The button to do that is right below every single video that we have. You can talk to other Occupy staff and members about every single slate that's coming up throughout the rest of the season, not just for the NFL, but all the other sports that are happening throughout the year also. Talking about our favorite wide receivers for all contest types does obviously include some of our underperforming wide receivers. We do have our list of the underperforming, aka buy low wide receivers that we think are the best plays here in Week 5. We're talking about those throughout the video here, so be sure you stick around and check that out. Some of the guys we have here are some of the best plays for low risk and high risk contests, but the underperformers especially are great plays in high risk contests. Last week we gave you Stephon Diggs, DeVonta Smith, both went over 100 yards, did fairly well in fantasy football last weekend. Devontae Parker was on our list, and he ended up scoring a touchdown for the Miami Dolphins as well. We had Jacoby Myers had a pretty decent night on Sunday Night Football for the Patriots. So this list is off to a pretty good start. We didn't get as many touchdowns as we liked out of it last week, which means this week's list should be even better. First wide receiver that we have for you isn't necessarily an underperformer. He's not on the list this week, but he didn't do great in Week 4. Just 12.4 fantasy points on 11 targets for the Packers. Davante Adams definitely looking to give you more than that week in and week out. Aaron Rodgers looking to give him more than that week in and week out. He's still, over the last 3 weeks of play, Davante with a 46% share of Rodgers' air yards, 37% share of the targets. One of the best kind of weighted opportunity roles that there is in football. Shout out to Josh Hermsmeyer, the area, RIPAirYards.com, for those formulas that kind of weight that and show us how strong those roles in the passing game are. Adams' role has been unprecedented and very high for over a year now. Just a great play week in and week out. Our model, which is up at OccupyFantasy.com for this week's slate, projects Adams for 11 targets. Just one of the highest totals of the week, but it's not the highest total, because the highest total actually belongs to Cleveland Browns wide receiver 1, Odell Beckham Jr. In just 2 weeks of play, Odell has amassed 16 targets, from Baker Mayfield. Hasn't really done a lot with them. He is one of our underperforming wide receivers this week. So yeah, we have the list for you a little bit later on in the video. Odell is on it. 45% share of Baker Mayfield's air yards, 22% share of the targets through 2 weeks of play. Very clearly entrenched as the primary receiving threat for the Browns, especially without Jarvis Landry available for them for another week or so. Definitely think Odell is a great play here against the Chargers in a game that has a reasonably high total. It's like the upper 40s in point total, like 47, 48-ish, depending on where you look right now. Good time for Odell to get a better performance in his box score here. Looking for a bit more than 5.1, or a lot more than 5.1, and a bit more than 13.7 fantasy points out of Odell Beckham Jr. His role certainly suggests that that's possible for him, and that hopefully we see those things turn around here in Week 5. 12 targets is what we project for him, if I forgot to mention that. Some value plays. We love value plays at wide receiver. Kadarius Toney, first-round pick for the Giants, finally got his wish, played a lot for them in Week 4, had 9 targets in this game, largely due to vacated opportunity because of injury. Both Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton didn't play for the Giants in Week 4 against the New Orleans Saints. Here in Week 5, Kenny Golladay is now also on the injury report. All 3 of these guys, according to Wednesday's injury report news, did not practice for the Giants. Looks like we're on track for another week where it's going to be Kadarius Toney running, nearly a route on nearly every down, running a fair amount of his routes out of slot positions where he thrives. And the only other receivers that will look to be available are guys like CJ Board and John Ross, on the outside for them. So Toney here at just $4,000. On DraftKings, very reasonably priced on FanDuel as well. Going to be one of the better value plays probably on this slate because the opportunity is going to be open, as I said. Also, it's one of the higher total games on the slate. The Giants and the Cowboys definitely looking like one of the better opportunities for game stacks, and Kadarius Toney looking like one of the better cheap piece options that we actually talk about in our NFL DFS strategy guide week in and week out that you need in your game stack. So keep an eye on the Giants wide receiver news and especially Kadarius Toney's role. Obviously, John Ross as well, mentioned him. Some of those other guys will be available, but I think Kadarius Toney is probably the safest one for low risk contests given his slot wide receiver role that he has for the Giants. I guess probably should talk about the other side of that game a little bit because it's starting to get a little frustrating if you're fantasy football player and you're using these guys, a fan of the Cowboys, and you're expecting more out of these guys. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper have combined 1 touchdown in the receiving game over the last 3 weeks. Dallas tight ends Dalton Schultz and Blake Jarwin have 4. That's not going to happen for the rest of the year, and if it does, well, we'll all be pretty shocked about that. That's definitely the case. CeeDee Lamb has a 32% share of Dak Prescott's air yards over the last 3 weeks of play, about a 17% target share. I think I mentioned in our quarterback video, Dak's passing volume is a little depressed. Hasn't had more than 27 pass attempts in a game over the last 4 weeks of play. Frankly, see that again here. Or 3 weeks of play. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're coming into the 4th week here where we hope he changes that trend and gives us more than that. When the volume increases in the passing game, the volume will increase to these receivers. The fantasy production from these receivers will increase as well. Their prices have started to come down a little bit. This is the highest team total offense on this slate as of right now, according to betting markets. Both of these guys, 6,200 for Lamb, 6,100 for Cooper here on DraftKings. Not super expensive on FanDuel either. Definitely think this is a good place to expect them to turn it around for you. Amari has sort of met his expectation a little bit thanks to last week's touchdown. CeeDee Lamb still underperforming a decent amount since week 1. So not on our list as an underperformer, but when you look at his opportunity, he's just not really given us what we want yet. So Lamb looking like a slightly better high-risk play here, given people are probably more down on him than they are Amari, given the recent performance. And obviously, the other team with a lot of receivers that we need to keep tabs on that has a high expectation here in betting markets. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their big 3, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Chris Godwin has played more snaps, ran more routes, over the entire season, but his role has started to dwindle. And a lot of people have been talking about this, on your respective timelines this week. We're certainly, I guess, going to join that discussion here. Big game against Dallas, 13 targets, just 5.75 the last 3 weeks there. But obviously that, the fact that they aren't playing in these high scoring games over the last couple weeks especially definitely plays a role there with Godwin. It's probably worth monitoring. His role isn't necessarily as high value. He's not seeing the deep shots that Mike Evans and Antonio Brown are seeing. He's living mostly in the slot for them, certainly as like a safety valve for Tom Brady. Definitely going to have his moments, probably is going to have a lot of great games throughout the rest of the year. But as of right now, it actually does look like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown have the slightly higher value role with deeper, average depths of target, higher share of raw overall team air yards over the last few weeks of play. Evans especially, 36% share of team air yards, 22% share of the targets. Definitely want to keep an eye on that. Antonio Brown may be the best value here of the 3, however. Came back from his stint on the COVID injured list, wasn't able to play in week 3. 11 targets last week against the Patriots. Everybody watched in the primetime game Antonio Brown get 2 consecutive deep targets in the end zone that he just was not able to bring in. Surprise, surprise, Antonio Brown is a member of our underperforming wide receiver list as a result. These 3 guys all have, pretty good expectations. We project, Godwin for the most targets with 9, AB's right behind him with 8, Evans for 7. All 3 of these guys are usable. Antonio Brown, probably the best high-risk play, given the fact that his target role is pretty high, and obviously he's on our list. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is that Brown is in more of a part-time type of role compared to Evans and Godwin. He is running around on roughly 60% of Brady's dropbacks compared to like 90% for Evans, virtually 100% for Chris Godwin. That's the one area to be concerned with here. Talked about Brown at length there with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Despite giving us 100 plus yards last week against Kansas City Chiefs, DeVonta Smith is still the poster child of our underperforming wide receiver list. According to our projections, he should have had about 52 fantasy points, expected fantasy points over the last 3 weeks of play based off of his role, the air yards he's seeing, the amount of targets he's seeing in this Philadelphia Eagle offense. He's underperformed that by almost 24 fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. Pretty astronomical 41% share of the air yards in this offense for DeVonta Smith. And I think it felt like Jalen Hurts had 2 or 3 different touchdowns taken off the board last week against Kansas City. So hopefully some of those get put back on the board here in week 5 against the Panthers, and they go DeVonta Smith's way. Talked about Odell earlier in this video. We've got him pegged for about 38 expected fantasy points over the last 3 weeks, or I guess over the last 2 weeks for him. And he's underperformed that by 21 points, according to our model. Again, 45% share of team air yards for Odell in those 2 weeks for the Browns. Big spot for him against the Chargers here in week 5. He's a pretty good tournament play, pretty good all-around play as a result. 2 injured guys. I didn't put in the graphic here, so if you're still watching this video, good for you. You're going to get some bonus tips. A.J. Brown and Chase Claypool were on this list as underperformers last week. So if they return to action for their teams, and that's A.J. Brown with the Tennessee Titans, Chase Claypool with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're strong tournament plays as well. Underperforming, their air yards, their expectations significantly over their last couple of weeks that they've played for their teams. Nelson Agholor with the Patriots, 26% share of Mac Jones' air yards. A little bit better game on Sunday Night Football last week for Jacoby Myers. Agholor still got a decent amount of opportunities, and then adding those to the opportunities he had in the 2 weeks before that. We like a 3-week look back. We think Agholor is still playing pretty heavy role in this offense at wide receiver. N'Keal Harry returned from injury for them in week 4, but only had 1 target. Just did not really eat into the roles for Myers or Agholor too much. So Agholor, another play here for the Patriots in a spot where they're pretty big favorites against Houston Texans. We like Nelson Agholor a lot. Courtland Sutton has a 46% share of Denver's air yards. Might have a quarterback change here. Might actually be good for Courtland Sutton, though, because Drew Lock has been known to be more of a deep ball kind of risk taker in his day than Teddy Bridgewater, although Teddy obviously doing a little bit better there this year. I want to say it's like 440-ish air yards over the last 3 weeks for Sutton. I mean, just an astronomical amount of raw air yards. Still no touchdowns on the year. Definitely something we'd like to see change sooner rather than later. A lot of the math nerds out there would tell you that there's a base rate of expectation for touchdowns per X number of air yards. He's well behind that. He's due to score some touchdowns for you as a result. Robbie Anderson. It's been the DJ Moore show. It's been the Carolina DJ Moores for the Panthers, especially without Christian McCaffrey available. Probably high time for him to get his 28% share of the air yards from Sam Darnold, 16% share of the targets over the last 3 weeks, and a concerted effort being made to get him more involved. That's what they said before their week 4 game. Has to still be on the table here in week 5. Obviously, if we're doing the math and the numbers and they're telling us that Robbie Anderson is underperforming his opportunity, you can bet that the Panthers know that as well, and they want to make sure that they keep him happy and give him an opportunity to score some more touchdowns, some real-life points for them. So everybody in the locker room continues to feel good about their production and what's turning out to be a pretty special season for them so far. They're on track for some special things. Those are our underperforming wide receivers here in week 5. We're really excited about this list. Feel like the majority of these guys are pretty healthy. Feel like they could be good components of all lineup types, especially your high-risk lineups. When we talk about game stacking in our daily plug, a lot of people do, 3-by-1 game stacking. That means we want a quarterback with 2 of his teammates at pass catcher and an opposing pass catcher in our high-risk lineups. It helps when we have game stacks for you that feature, a receiver or 2 on our underperforming wide receiver list. So keep an eye out for that. The next thing to keep an eye out for is the daily plug at occupyfantasy.com. We will publish that on Friday afternoon. That will feature, obviously, this underperforming wide receiver list. We'll go into a little bit more detail about the players that we like the best at wide receiver. Not just wide receiver. We'll give you, obviously, your favorite quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends for you to consider as well. So certainly want to be checking that out when it releases. Again, that's the daily plug at occupyfantasy.com. It'll be released on Friday. That's going to do it for this video. If you liked what But we did here. We would really appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up on the video. Lets us know that you want to see more of this type of content. If you have any questions about wide receivers, whether we discuss them or not, the best place to do that is in the comment section below. It allows us to reply to you directly there. You can also have more in-depth discussions with Occupy staff and other members in our Discord. And there's a link to do that above the description of the video, right below this video. It's there for every video we produce for you guys. So definitely feel free to check that out, take advantage of that as well. Lots of things going on in the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel for you this year. We're releasing new NFL content almost every day now throughout the season. We obviously have some UFC content for those big contests when they come out. We're probably going to be getting into some NBA and NHL throughout the rest of the year as well, as that's starting to heat up. So you definitely want to check that out also. That's going to do it, folks. I'm Chris. Thank you for watching this video, and we'll talk to you soon.